Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 108, and I'm really excited because we're heading into the new season, and our championship driver, now defending championship driver from the past season, Porsche, has finally eclipsed his teammate. He is reaching an 84 overall first, though I know that at this point, Doohan will be just behind him, but he has finally overtaken him. His cornering is now an 89, so I'm 1 point away from pushing that to a 90 and then having to kind of decide where I want to go from there, what attribute we want to level up next. I've also managed to get Jago up to an 83 overall. Our race engineer, who's actually partnered with Porsche, they've leveled up together. His pit crew management is where I'm putting all of his points in until it's maxed. It's up to a 91. I've got a chassis upgrade complete right before we start the first race of the season, so it's not going to be on the car right away, but we're immediately turning around and using up half of our MAU hours left, and the wind tunnel not quite half of what's left, so I'll still have a little bit to contribute to 2 more upgrades in this department. We might have finished really strong last year, but the car wasn't great at the beginning of the season. It definitely had to have some parts put into it that put us in the position to be at the top or compete at the top before then focusing on research the rest of the year. But it was a slow start. Doohan was 6th, Porsche was 9th in the opening race. Teams were all over the place though. I mean, you had one Ferrari in the points. You had one McLaren 2nd, one 8th. One Red Bull 3rd, one 7th. Mercedes, one car in 4th, the other in 10th. So the field was really spread. You didn't really have any teams showing up back-to-back in the points at all. So what will this season be like? And while we've already verified that we have the fastest car, compared to grid average, we're comfortable. I haven't looked to see where all the teams are. I'm going to wait till after this season opener to check where all the teams are. I want to go out and find out live on track. We would hope that we're in position to win the race, maybe even get a 1-2, but I don't know how close it is to us and other teams. Let's find out. I would absolutely love in a future edition of this game to see a new shape, a new car design, new paint job, something as you go forward into future seasons and as you go into major regulation changes. That one in particular, I would love to see some sort of variation to the car design. That would be an amazing touch that would make a lot of people really happy, myself included. I am taking practice session 1 here, and we're going to speed it up. While we're taking practice session 1 here, here's the thing that I'm after, and expectations. Expectations are rather low right now. Why? Because we're on the hard compound, everybody else is going to be on the soft. I am going heavy fuel, everybody else is going to go normal. I am saving the components because these are our initial race components that we're going to be starting with, and everybody else is going to be going normal. So for multiple factors, we are going to be off the pace. But we're getting used to the car, we're getting used to the track, and I'm going to work on getting our setup for this first race. But I will bypass practice sessions 2 and 3 as per how this series is going at this point, as we are approaching the release of F1 Manager 23. Amazingly, we're not at the back of the grid despite the wrong tire, the heavy fuel load, and driving less than our maximum, and there's a lot of time in this car that we are not putting out on track right now. So we are definitely going to be a lot faster than what we're showing. But looking at the other teams, Ferrari, Red Bull still seem to be the 2 main competitors. But as for everybody else, it's hard to tell. Ocon's 4th, Gasly's 20th, so Mercedes is all over the place. No one team is just clearly at the back.
Car balance feedback when capacity.
Switching to the soft compound, but still taking it easy. Fuel load is about average, about normal. And Pourchaire goes right to the top. After the final practice session, Piastri and Alpine is second quickest in practice, but they are 1.3 seconds behind. Red Bull, Ferrari up there, but Haas seems to be well off pace. 2.8 seconds behind. Looks like we could be comfortable out front. We handled research last season right, and it's got us well ahead. As a result, I've gone ahead and skipped qualifying. It looks like there's not going to be a close battle, and yes, we are over 1.3 seconds ahead of Lando Norris, and Alpine is second quickest this season, ahead of Red Bull.
It's race day with the teams and drivers ready and raring to go.
Williams had a good performance in qualifying. Now they'll be eager to demonstrate that they can have an even better race. Although Red Bull must be disappointed with their qualifying, they have resources aplenty. Let's see if they can rise up from their great position with a strong race. We've been having sunny weather here today, but there are some clouds looming that might complicate things for teams further down the line.
But which team has perfected the strategy that will see them prevail today, here at the Bahrain Grand Prix? A partly clear night here. The drivers now lined up on the grid. Looking at the Williams now. They're in pole position, and they've got to be happy about that. And looking at the second Williams car. They're in second place on the grid, but that could so easily change in the first few seconds of the race. And we're just moments away now. Here we go with the Bahrain Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Not only do we have a pace advantage that is seemingly significant, but following close behind is a lot more challenging with the new regulations than what it was. The dirty air portion of how a car drives, how it reacts, is going to be trickier. Doohan had pole, but Pourchaire has already taken the lead, and you can see we're already starting to open a gap over half a second to Piastri in third. Already over a second ahead, so I have a feeling that we're going to have some pretty boring races this season as we are miles ahead and we continue to push development and we cruise. The big question is, can we keep it clean enough to take a 1-2 in every race all season long? Do we have that kind of pace? Red Bull has that kind of pace in real life. They turn the engine down all the time. They can be winning by those kind of margins, but they focus so heavily on one driver over the other that they shoot themselves in the foot on a regular basis, and it keeps it down to, is that an Aston Martin who just went off? It is. Giovinazzi runs wide, he locks up, runs wide, comes back on in last place. Well out of DRS range. But with it being difficult to follow, there's going to be a lot of teams, a lot of drivers, a lot of cars unable to follow very closely, which means DRS is going to be trickier to use, and this is going to resemble that first season a bit more, with the field a lot more spread out. We've got a two-stopper for this one, going from softs to hards to finishing on mediums. I do have Doohan scheduled to pit one lap earlier, as he's a little bit worse for wear when it comes to tire life than Pourchaire is, and you can see he's a % or two behind already, and the softs really not lasting too long, but then trying to extend by that one lap when we switch to the mediums. But we'll see if these two are still neck and neck by that point. At this stage, we're already 11.5 seconds ahead, and the rest of the field's not that far off. Piastri with the lockup. Okay, he goes to the back. He was P3 last we had looked, and now he's last place. for this opener to the season, we are not doing a double race. However, from the looks of it, and especially if, you know, we're a full straight ahead of everybody after just 12 laps on a consistent basis throughout this season, then you can fully expect that we will easily squeeze in 2 races per episode. Also, this will be the final season for F1 Manager 2022 as we prepare for the release of F1 Manager 23 and the challenge to come for that one. 14 seconds ahead. We can't quite pit and come out ahead of everyone, but we are drawing closer to that, where it may be possible that we pit and actually come out ahead of the field. At this stage, we're definitely at a point where we'll be ahead of the back end of the field, but I don't know where we'll necessarily come out at. .8 ahead. There is little gaps in that field. I have a feeling we're going to come out somewhere in the middle of all of that. And doing optimal pit stop lap. He's going to lose a lot of pace if we don't pit now, even though we're going to get caught in traffic. It's time. Others will pit soon enough.
Okay, so
Maybe a couple laps later, whatever the case may be. They got to pit when they got to pit. But for now, we'll try to push and stretch. 16.2 ahead. Porsche obviously will be pitting just a single lap later. This is the most difficult corner right here. No mistake from there. Let's go ahead and go aggressive the rest of the lap. Final lap of the run. 17 seconds ahead for Doohan as he dives off into the pits. 17.3 seconds, the gap. And it's only 23 all the way down to Albon, so that's why I think we're going to come out very much in traffic. But here comes the field, down the pit straight, 2.694. Not a great pit stop, but it's hard to develop your pit crew here. And we do not come out ahead of everyone. We are going to come out in traffic. I was hoping to come out in between those 2 groups. We don't. We come out near the front end of this group. And settling in right away. No reason to push here. We are where we are. Porsche, meanwhile, though. Doohan still P11 for now. We'll be checking in on both drivers, obviously, here shortly, as they will be in a similar position, though Porsche seems to have picked up about 1 second. 1 second ahead of where Doohan would be, and that's up maybe a spot, maybe 2 if we can get ahead of Sonoda. Got almost to 19 seconds ahead and has hit 19 seconds. 2.709, a little slower on the stop. He started a little further behind his teammate, obviously, as he was second position, and then his pit stop was a little slower. He is going to come out just ahead of this group. Yes, he does. That's where I was hoping to slot Doohan in at. Already the others are starting to pit, though, so it's not like we are far off. In Porsche's case, same lap as quite a few drivers. Doohan pitting 1 lap earlier, and we are already back into P3 and P6 with a couple of seconds in between Porsche and Doohan. In Doohan's case, that's because he's caught up in traffic, that he lost that time, and not necessarily that the hards are that much slower than the softs. It's traffic. Very much traffic. But if most of the guys already pit ahead of us, we should expect that in the next lap or 2, the remainder of these 4 drivers that are ahead of us will peel off and be out of the way. Right now we ride with Doohan in P6. Porsche has already left that group behind. He came out just ahead of him, and he's already caught Norris and Verstappen. Closing in on Magnussen. He's going to have a look up the inside, but tuck back in. Still caught behind Magnussen for a further lap, and so now he's already 3 seconds or thereabouts behind his teammate. Three-second gap between the teammates, though, so no DRS for now. Magnussen stays out yet another lap. He is on the softs. Very much extending the 3 more drivers that were still left all pit. That's going to leave just Magnussen. Verstappen on the mediums. Alternate strategy for him. Everyone else opting for the hards. So your only 2 guys that are really changing up are Magnussen extending by a lap or 2 and Ocon. So that explains why those guys all went a lap or 2 after everybody else. I would venture to say that Magnussen's going to be on the same strategy, and I would expect him to pit this lap or the next. And we're now talking about a 24-second gap and growing. 2 Red Bulls clearly ahead of everybody else. Oh, Pourchaire spins. Pourchaire spins. Or 2 later you might spin. Should still come back out and ahead of the field, and does. Doing ahead of him. Definitely lost some ground. 4 seconds behind us. He's getting going again. So he loses about 7 seconds on that. And that's the thing about the pace of the car right now, is we have enough room to make mistakes and get away with it. In Alpine, Norris just spun in the same place. Just pulled off the same move, same lap. But he comes back out in last place. And that's mistakes for both Piastri and Norris now. So Alpine, who appear to have the second quickest car, are straight to the back of the grid. And Red Bull seem to have quite a bit more pace than others. McLaren, I thought in practice, might be the slowest. And yet here they are competing with Gasly. Gap is down to 18.7 seconds. Not enough to be ahead of the Red Bulls if we were to pit now, but we've got a long time until we do. Did have the better setup for the day, 90% plus. He's got a couple bonuses to his attributes that put him a little closer, and he has caught up.
That's a stonky.
And actually, even then, it's not a big pack. It's 5th through 9th place. Albon, no man's land. And then most of the rest of the field, 11th through 20, is bunched up. Those who made mistakes have caught up to the tail end of the field. But because of those mistakes, they've dropped down. Doing Pourchaire, swapping positions. Verstappen runs wide, turn 14, but we are 24 seconds ahead of Verstappen now. 31 ahead of Russell. Those two split up. I'm not sure what happened there. And then 46 ahead of the chasing pack. So Verstappen still has a chance to come out ahead of us, but not much of a chance. Doohan will pit this lap. Another slow stop for Pourchaire compared to his teammate, 2.721. Verstappen also pitting, so he's not even going to be just behind us there. Pourchaire, though, 2.4 behind Doohan. And the fuel is now the same, so back to balanced, 1.8. I'll leave it up to him on whether he can close down that last 8/10, 1.7.
Very good. Lap time out good. Lap time out good.
43 laps of 57 complete. Russell into the pits. Will relinquish 3rd position, come back out in probably P4 again, though there are a few cars here that have yet to pit. Russell coming back on track. We are well ahead. You can see as we come around turn 9, Verstappen is just coming around, what is that, 4? And then Russell was just coming around 2 and 3. Those other guys are down pit road. I think we've got a chance to lap some cars today. Down the main straight. Can we see them ahead? Oh, there's a dot up there. You may not see it, but just at the distance, I can see that movement. Can't quite see. It's not clear, but it's there or thereabouts. We are getting close to these guys. Can we catch and lap some cars before the end of the race? 30 seconds ahead of Verstappen, 46 ahead of Russell, over a minute to everybody else. Norris is a lap down. Oh, why is he a lap down? Because we already caught him. There he is behind us. So we did lap a car. But for Perez and Latifi, who are battling side by side, Best place to lock up on the entire F1 calendar. For me, anyway, when I play the F1 game. That's my most frequent lockup right there. That downhill and turning in, braking. No reason to take it easy necessarily either, except for the pace would be sufficient to save some components for later on, but these are going to quickly turn into our race practice components, that is. Lap 52. 38 seconds ahead of Verstappen, 53 ahead of Russell. Folks, we've got ourselves a dominant car, but is it the Red Bull or is it the Alpine or the McLaren that's closest to us? The Alpine's hard to tell after their mistakes, but it does appear that the Red Bulls might just be the second quickest. Lap 56 of 57. We have already lapped numerous cars now. There's 4 more behind us. There's 2 more just ahead of us. We've got 5 more already behind us. So we have 6 lapped cars now, and we're coming up on 3 cars here at the end as Porsche and Doohan battle it out.
Seems to have been a lockout.
Magnussen going from 13th down to 17th on that. On the final lap. It wouldn't have been their final lap, but as they're getting lapped, it becomes their final lap. 47 seconds ahead of Verstappen. Over a 57 lap race. And we made mistakes that cost us 7 seconds roughly. So tack that on, 54. We're almost a second a lap faster. And Mercedes makes a mistake. It's going to cause them to be the next car lapped. Gasly, the one with that mistake. Mercedes only going to score 1 point today. And it looks like Schumacher might get blue flagged here, and does. We lap half the field. Porsche looks like he's going to hang on as we come around the final corner. Take Doohan's perspective. How close is he? Can he make a push? Can he make a run? I'm not adding anything. He's got DRS. He is going to close up, but he's going to take P2. Porsche with the win. We do get our 1-2 to start the season quite comfortably. Nearly a second a lap faster race pace than Red Bull. And to the next team, it's a minute and a half. So almost a second and a half per lap faster race pace than those guys. And we lap half the field. Oh boy, we are in for a dominating season. Let's check in. The points are obvious where that is headed. Let's check in on the car comparisons. The only area where we are not top of the grid is the brake cooling and engine cooling. 61%, 58% for those. They are well above grid average though, and we're well above grid average in everything. But how do we compare with the other teams? Let's start with Haas. I think they probably were the slowest. They're ahead of us in brake cooling, but we've got them comfortably beat everywhere else. We are over a kilometer an hour, kilometer and a quarter an hour faster than they are. We corner better significantly. 1/10 of a G, kind of across the board. 10% better dirty air cornering, though. I mean, this is well below what we had last year. The rank, they're 3rd in low speed and medium speed, and they're a 10th behind us. But they are slow. Hard to tell who was next. Haas was really the only standout that was a ways behind. There was quite a few cars that kind of fell into the mid-pack. AlphaTauri, we'll take a look at them. They are ahead in brake cooling. Just a little bit. Behind everywhere else. Even further behind in a lot of areas. They are only 1 kilometer an hour slower than we are, though. Rank on grid, none of it's good, except for the brake cooling. 9th in top speed, so average, but 15th, 19th in a lot of places. They are worst in the high speed, and I think they're going to struggle to score some points this season. Haas is going to have some races where they're decent. Monaco, Haas should easily be in the points. Alfa Romeo had a rough race. However, there was mistakes involved, and I don't think they're necessarily as far off the pace as their position suggested in that first race. 3/4 of a kilometer an hour off the pace, definitely faster in a straight line. 2/10 down in low speed, almost. Their cornering appears to be really bad. Also, their low speed, dirty air cornering can't get much worse than that. They don't have the brake cooling either. They have top speed. They have high speed cornering. Third in high speed, terrible in low and medium speed. And not the worst though. Brake cooling, they are last. That's the only place they're last. Aston Martin just ahead of us in engine cooling, way behind in brake cooling. Not as bad in dirty air cornering, but definitely still off the pace. 1.25 kilometers an hour behind, so they're definitely slow in a straight line. They'll compete for points every once in a while, but I think Aston Martin's going to struggle to score too many points this season. Mercedes ahead in brake cooling, close in engine cooling, better in dirty air cornering than I think what we've seen from the others, but not good. Their top speed right about 1 kilometer an hour behind us, and their cornering about 1/10 behind. They are consistently behind, but not in terrible shape. Their top speed is going to hurt them though. Their high speed cornering is going to hurt them. They'll be competitive at certain tracks. Street circuits, I think, will go decently well for them. The Ferrari, 1 kilometer an hour slower, well off in cornering. On the lower side for dirty air cornering as well, and a ways behind in the cooling. Wow, Ferrari's going to really struggle to score points. They did not put enough into this year's car at all. This is the lowest we've seen Ferrari. Yeah, they're going to struggle to score points. They are below average. They don't have any glaring weaknesses, which is something some of the other teams have. But they also don't have any strengths. So I don't see how they're necessarily going to be, they'll be competing for 8th, 9th, 10th every race. And I don't think they're ever going to be in a position to be competing for a higher position of 4, 5, 6 to get those extra points. They might be consistently getting 9th or 10th, getting 1 or 2 points a race. That's going to be about it. We saw Perez was well at the back of the grid. Or was it Sainz? Perez, right? Driving for Ferrari. McLaren, slow. Definitely slow. Not cornering. How did they qualify so well? This car looks terrible. It is terrible. McLaren is the slowest car on the grid. Where they started versus where they finished, I don't know how they pulled off a miracle to be starting near the front of the grid, to be practicing as the second best car. They are the worst car. McLaren is going to be dead last. Alpine looked good. How do they really compare? How do they compare to Red Bull? We're going to be checking that. Are these the two quickest challengers? Less than a kilometer behind in top speed, but way off on acceleration. A lot of the others are at around 1.887, I believe. They definitely have some top speed. They definitely aren't terrible, but I'm not sure they're terribly good. They've got the best engine cooling. They are top 10 pretty much across the board. Good, not great. My guess is Red Bull is going to be a pretty clear number 2. 3/4 of a kilometer an hour behind us, 0.7. But even they seem to be well off compared to us. We are well ahead of everybody. Cornering's not going to be great. They have top speed. Bahrain was a track where top speed's going to help. And they're second best in speed. Hence the gap that they had over everybody else. But they're not going to be there every race. The team that is going to be there every race, it's us. It's us. We are strong. Others? Well, no one prepared their car the way we did. No one put in the time, the effort. A lot of them just kept working on last year's car, and we didn't. We turned to the research. And while the those final races got closer, tighter, and we didn't win them all down the stretch. This year, oh boy, we are well ahead. Well ahead. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.